Hello there, I am Norstier, and I'm making this video series because I've been streaming a bit on Twitch recently, very new at it, and I've been going through the Stellaris channels, and actually, what I've found there is that there's still quite a few people who are just taking up the game, which is brilliant. I highly, highly, highly recommend this game. So I'm going to do a YouTube series because I tried to make a quick video about how amazing Stellaris is, and I found it lasted over an hour. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to play through the game. I'm going to talk very, very, very heavily about it, and hopefully it offers some help to you new players. If you do enjoy it, I'm also running a stream at midday Sundays, British summertime, where I'm playing through an Empire from scratch. More than happy to ask any questions in real time there. But for now, let's have a look at the game. So, when you have first booted Stellaris, you will have something like this. Just go straight into it. You will find I've been playing a while. I've made some interesting nations. So the Starfox Commonwealth is in fact the one I'm using on Twitch at the moment. I'm not going to touch that. But if you've just bought the game, there's loads of nations you can start off with, each with their own pros and cons. I would say just pick one that looks cool. You can worry about all these brutal details later. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to start with one of the human nations. You've got two that come as default. The United Nations of Earth, who are, well, that's the United Nations of Earth. But you've also got a lost colony called the Commonwealth of Man. Depends on how you want to play. United Nation of Earth, they're xenophiles. They're going to play a little bit more diplomatically, a little bit more friendly. Commonwealth of Man, they're going to be a bit more aggressive. They hate aliens. And they're pretty militaristic. Doesn't really matter. I would pick one. You're going to learn the game. So I'm going to go United Nations of Earth. All of these things here. So you have various civics. You have your empire government forms. They're going to have impacts. Don't worry too much about them right now. I'll run through them on the next screen. But I'm just going to go for it. United Nations of Earth. I'm going to set the default. The only thing I'm changing is I just happen to like spiral galaxies. Let's go with the 2-arm. It makes it look pretty and it'll affect the map a bit. And we're in. So, it takes a few seconds to load. There's a lot going on in a Stellaris game. But when you're greeted at the beginning, you get a nice little bit of flavour. So, your origin, some of the origins are really, really fun. There's loads in the game. It's prosperous unification. So in terms of game mechanics, we get 4 additional pops. Pops are great. More pops, more workers. We get 2 additional districts. Districts and buildings I'll go into later, but that, suffice it to say, is more production. So much has happened since modern humans first emerged in Africa some 200,000 years ago. Our kind spread rapidly across most of the globe, and soon its first civilizations took form. Scientific progress has been swift, though not without cost. Wars claimed millions of lives even before the atom was tamed. And the turmoil of the 21st century saw the mandate of the United Nations gradually expanded in an effort to create stability. By the early 22nd century, the supranational organisation had become a de facto world government. Though some still resent the power wielded by the UN, as evidenced during the Mauritanian police action of '88, few can deny the technological breakthroughs that have come out of its sponsored research programs. With the recent completion of the first true starships, mankind is about to embark on a new era of space exploration. Yeah, let's begin. If this is your first playthrough, notice that the game begins paused. That's very handy. There's a few things I'd say you should do before you do anything. If you have never played the game before, you kind of got a few different areas of menu. So you've got a menu bar on the right. These are sort of various bits and pieces. I'll go through them later that you use a lot. You've got your resource bars at the top. Just note that these also link to relevant menu locations. So when I click on a resource, we get the galactic market. When I click on my spaceships, oh, nothing happens. Ha! But when I click on something else, research, you get your research options and so on. One of the really handy quick reference guides is the outliner. So you can see I can go directly to a planet, in this case Earth, a star station, or a space station. You can go to military fleets. And as your empire gets more and more complex and bigger, this will come in really, really handy. You've also got map options and things down here. Don't worry about these too much. But do bear in mind there's a couple of useful buttons down here. If you get lost or there's an event and you can't find it, you can use go to or search to find out exactly where it's going on. You've got shortcuts to some of your ships down here. You can obviously add more later as the game goes. I don't use this very often. I think the outliner and things like that are great anyway. And you have a link to the galaxy map. I love some of the artwork in Stellaris. It's really good. Just for sake of argument though, let's zoom out. There is the galaxy map. You'll spend a lot of time in the galaxy map, so you might as well have one that you enjoy the look of. Whether or not you select spirals or elliptical affects the distribution of the star systems in the hyperlanes. So you'll notice, for instance, here, it's a lot harder to get across the two arms of the galaxy than it is to just go up and down it. For me, I think that creates a kind of a natural feel, but that's a preference. For now, I'm going to go back to Sol. And you can see our star system. So right at the beginning, we've got a few things we can get going. So I'm going to go for a construction ship first. Construction ships zip about the galaxy, building mining stations and building outposts, which outposts are the space stations you use to claim new star systems. Right at the beginning, I happen to think that minerals are a very precious resource. In fact, I would say all resources are precious. The reason this is important right now is because if I right-click on Vesta, it actually costs me minerals to build a mining station. So I want to make sure I'm improving my mining production straight away. Note, this is a little bit cheaper. So I have a leader that's giving me a bonus on that. I haven't even looked at them yet, but I know from experience I do. So, cool. Brilliant. Let's get that going. That will mean I'll increase my production a little bit. And as I've just mentioned leaders, it's worth having a quick look at them. Because, as we've seen, that's made a real difference to how cheap my mining stations are. So this button up here isn't necessarily obvious it's a button, but it is. So you can go up and have a quick look at your president. So all leaders have a level. And the level will give you some minor bonuses. They're good enough that you want them. So, you know, edict duration. We're not going to use any edicts at the beginning, so that's a bit meh. But monthly unity's good. Unity's one of your stats. Here it is. So, yeah, a bit of extra unity. Fine. But she's a space miner. So we are getting more resources out of our mining stations. Great. And they're cheaper to build. Great. There's loads of these. Have a look, because some of them might make things a little bit cheaper and a little bit easier right at the beginning. You can also look at the demographics and things if you want. Note things like this. If you want to keep an eye out for, you know, how fast your pop grows, that's in here. And then your advisor.
Okay.
If you just want a different voice.
Nothing is impossible to those who would try.
I'll stick with the diplomat. Notice as your empire, as you expand, gain science, discover new things in the world, your empire is going to get modifiers. They'll come in here. At the moment, it's a bit dry, so let's not look too much about it. You have other leaders as well, though, and it's well worth bearing them in mind. So you have governors. So a governor governs a sector. So at the moment, we only have one sector. It's Earth. This guy happens to be righteous, so crime will be lower. And again, you get a little bit of a buff, so extra resources and some lower empire sprawl. You know, that's good. Empire sprawl's a kind of a weird concept. It's up here. Basically, if you don't have enough bureaucrats, once it goes above that number, your empire sprawl, you'll start to slow down your research. It's a pain. And you don't want it, but it can be dealt with. Scientists, note how there's loads of them. You'll be running a lot of scientists throughout the game. Science is amazing. You want as many good scientists as you can get jobs for. Just bear in mind, they're all quite expensive at the beginning. They cost 200 and we've only got 100. So don't buy any leaders just for fun. Admirals and generals, they command your fleets and your armies. Always, always, always prioritise admirals over generals. Stellaris is a game about space combat and space empires. Your admirals are really critical. They give you buffs in combat. Your generals only come into play if you are invading or being invaded by an enemy. And if that's happening, you already have major, major problems. If you're being invaded, you've got major problems, and I would only invade when you know you're going to win. Yes, they have their uses, but prioritise admirals. And at the beginning, probably prioritise scientists. On the side menus as well, you can have a look at your species. Let's not worry about that right now. Other than to note a couple of quick things. Our species happens to like continental planets. So we need to keep an eye out for them. We're going to get bonuses for colonising them. Whereas on a savannah world, it's pretty bad. Humans are adaptive. That's great. It means the habitability is a little bit higher on every single planet, which means we get slightly more resources and our populations are slightly happier. We're also nomadic. Don't worry about the mechanisms here, but they're more likely to move around and populations will grow a little bit faster. But we are wasteful, so we will waste consumer goods. Consumer goods, you can see up here. Basically, if your population doesn't have enough washing machines, they're going to be upset. Also on this, claims, when we come up against rival empires, let's not worry about that now. We don't have any rival empires. Factions will come up again later. Technology, really important. Technology window. It's important enough that we actually have some alerts going off up here. You can also access the technology window directly by clicking the alert. Boom. Science is another thing that's really critical. This is a science fiction game. And in every bit of science fiction, if you've got some technology the other guy doesn't have, you can essentially be like gods. The traits, again, for your leaders are important. So we've got a genius, research speed in anything plus 10%. But notice Hannah Al-Qadi down here. She's really, really good at statecraft. So she should prioritise statecraft technologies. And Colin Merchant is really good at propulsion. So he should prioritise propulsion. You got physics, society and engineering. This is quite good. I happen to really love administrative AI. Straight out 5% bonus. When we get it. You can see it's a long time. Also note your leader level does affect the research speed a little bit. But the traits they have are way, way more important. So for Hannah Al-Qadi, I'm going to look for a statecraft if we've got it. And we do. And I happen to like this one. All of these are pretty good. They're straight up bonuses, most technologies. Every now and again you'll get one that's dangerous. The game does warn you. This is pretty tough. Population growth is amazing. I happen to like Unity, and she's good at it, so I'm going to go with that for now. And then, poor old Colin doesn't actually have a propulsion project, so I'm going to go straight up for this one. As I said for the generals, if you're using your armies defensively, you are in big trouble. If you're using them offensively, you should be dropping so many on that you win anyway. But, I mean, you know, it's still nice to have. But extra minerals, we want minerals. So I'm going to go with that for now. There are huge tech trees. Other buttons. Fleet Manager lets you change the composition of your fleet. At the moment, we haven't got many options. And you can see your options in the Ship Designer. So at the moment, we only have 2 options. We could make more, and we will, but not in this first video. And we have a starbase. That's a defensive thing. The only thing I do turn off the auto-generate designs. I like to have options and make them up myself. You have traditions and relics. So Unity gives you traditions. It's basically like culture in a civilization game, something like that. And these are buffs for your empire. We'll go into those when it becomes relevant. Edicts. Statewide things you can do. In this case, we could spend 80 influence to fortify the border. We could encourage political thought to get different politics in our empire. I wouldn't touch that at this stage of the game. Unless you really, really hate your politics, I suppose. But at the beginning, that's not relevant. We can run one edict. We can run one edict at the moment. But I wouldn't advise it. Influence is a really precious resource at the beginning of the game. Because you need it. Not only for edicts, not only for claims, but you need it to get new star systems. And at the beginning, you're going to want to get every star system you can. But know that it's here. You also have policies. These are various things about your empire, for instance. Are you unrestricted with your wars, or do you want to only fight defensively? Don't worry about changing these for the minute, but you may want to later in the game. Particularly diplomatic stance. Expansionist is a good starter. But later in the game, if you're surrounded by friends, you might want to go cooperative. The only one I changed at the beginning is trade policy. Starts off with wealth creation. So at every point of trade, you can see Earth has 15. Goes straight up to money. So if you look here somewhere, there's our trade 15.03. I happen to like Marketplace of Ideas. You can use consumer benefits if you feel you just don't have enough washing machines for your population. Note that you lose half of your money doing this from trade. So that 15 is going to become 7.5. But I do like Marketplace of Ideas, so I'm going to take it. Lose half of my money from trade, but gain some more unity. I just love unity. Expansion Planner lists all the planets you can expand into. Notice we haven't got any colonizable ones. Mars at the beginning of the game is barren, but it has a modifier. You can use it for terraforming. Or we could when we get the technology. Unfortunately, you don't start with it. You can look at all your planets and sectors. Open up the galactic market. We'll use that later on, probably fairly early on. But, at the beginning it's going to be really difficult to balance all our production. So don't be afraid to use the market if you need some credits. There is a situation log. As you explore the map, various interesting things will come in as anomalies or situations that you need to deal with. They will all pop up in here. It's really, really, really good. You'll be in and out of here a lot. Also, because we're a democracy, our leader has a mandate. So she got elected saying she was going to build loads and loads of mineral refineries. So we need to get our minerals production up at the end of her term to plus 30 a month. Actually, pretty good chance we will have that at the end of the term. And that gives us a load of bonus unity. And contact is diplomacy. So I'm trying to keep these videos relatively quick, under 20 minutes. You'll see me glance at the clock occasionally. So I'm not going to go into too much more of the game now. But one thing that we should do is just talk a little bit about exploration. So we have a science ship that isn't doing anything. That is clearly not a good idea. So let's just have a look at the map. So here we go. You can see in our immediate area we've got a series of hyperlanes. And, well, that's it really. On the map, at the moment I've got it toggled so that we only see the slightly less detailed map. So we're only seeing resources we're not connecting. Any resource in green is already being collected. Just bear that in mind when you're looking at systems and things later on in the game. One thing that is very important about science ships is that they can explore. So if I select a military fleet and try and move it, at the moment, I can't. It's not been explored. It's really, really critical to get science ships out there because they let your construction ships and your military fleets move. Science ships have two modes of exploration. What's this skill? Oh well, lifespan. It's nice. So there are two things you can do. You can, with a science ship, right click. You can either explore or survey. Explore is basically fly through there, wave at some planets, do nothing else. Survey is spend a lot of time there, go to every single planet and the asteroids, and just check what's going on. So, at the beginning, I just want to get a very quick overview of what's happening in this area. So there are two things that jumping out at me. First thing to look out for is some choke points. So we have this little cluster. Notice how there's no way out, except for, can you see there's one here that's not been explored yet? And there's one over here. So we have two choke points. These are really strategically important. If we get these two, nobody can get into this whole set of planets. Similarly, this one's pretty good. If we get this one, nobody can cross from that arm to that arm. So keep an eye out for those sorts of systems early on. They're really, really handy. The other thing that may not be clear straight away is that with the default settings on the game, there will be some habitable planets nearby you. It is worth looking for them as quickly as possible. Planets take a little bit of a while to develop, but once they do, they are really good. So for instance, I am just going to get this guy to explore that system. And then I'm going to press shift, and I'm going to line up some extra commands. So shift clicking. Oops, sorry, wrong button there. Let me just cancel that. Stop. Let me just cancel that. I want to just very quickly explore them. So I'm not worrying about the details of these. I just want to find some cool planets. So let's get him going. One other thing, I'd say science ships are so important at the beginning of the game that I'm going to build another one. Notice we only have 100 alloys. When I click on the Sol Station shipyard, it's going to cost a really good portion of my total alloys. I could use that for building warships, in this case the Corvette, or another construction ship. But actually, I'm hoping I'm not right next to anything hostile. And I want to improve my economy, and I want to know what's going on. So I'm going to go straight for a science ship. No frills. Let's do it. And at that point, I'm probably ready to unpause the game. So I will, just for a few minutes, unpause. So I'm going to speed the game up as well. Normal speed's quite slow. Just zoom in. And fast is really fast. Move around. When you're in wars, you might want to slow the game down. Et voila. So my science ship has now moved into Procainon. We can have a quick look at the system. Looks very pretty. But there is no habitable planet there. There is a symbol that we'll see soon. So I'm not going to worry too much about that system yet. And while that's been ticking away, if you probably noticed this watching the video before I did, we now have a second science ship. We need to put a scientist on it, or we can't use it. So let's get a scientist on there. Unfortunately, at the moment, I can't afford one. Don't be afraid at the beginning of the game to sell some stuff. I mean, look how much food we're producing. We're producing loads of food. So I'm going to just sell a bit of food. Now I have my 200. Go back. Let's see what we got. So you can see the traits. So this one's good at physics, particles. This one's good at statecraft. We've actually already got a scientist who's good at statecraft. That's a complete waste, really. We can only use one. So I'm going to go for this one with the carefree trait. So they research anomalies really fast. For now, I think that's cool. So recruit them. Click on them. Job done. And then let's get them doing exactly the same thing. So that science ship's going into that area of the galaxy. We'll get this one. Well, I'll just move there. Explore that. I'll have a quick look at this one. And then have a quick look at this one. And whatever's the Vale Zalash Nebula. And I think between the two of them, yeah, that's covered everything. Note, as this ship moves around, we can see a few more details about the space hyperlanes. As you expand, keep an eye on it. There will be other choke points you want to get. I'd quite like to get this system, because it's going to give us a lot of control, both protecting this home cluster and about moving backwards or forwards across here. So in a war, could be really useful. So we now have 2 science ships outgoing. I'm probably going to build a third. Just bear in mind, you might have to wait for the alloys.
Construction completed.
There we are. Mining station built. Notice our production has gone from 27 to 30. Wonderful. And we're going to get him building another one. Yep, one more mining station, please. That sounds good to me. It's going to mine the energy credits in this case. There's also some bonus engineering research that we haven't got yet, which we should go for. 2 research doesn't sound like a lot, but our total research is only 23 at the moment. So that's more or less a 10% buff. And you notice there's a pop-up to tell us that the construction's complete. We'll just get rid of that. So off we go. So 2 things. 1, I've got enough money for my next science ship, so I'm going to build that. How many is enough? Entirely up to you. I like to have at least 4. Sometimes I'll go as mad as 6. Just bear in mind, they do have upkeep costs. So there's an upkeep cost in credits. And I think they cost money in alloys as well. The other thing is, look out for this symbol. That, my friend, is a habitable planet. It's a continental world. And our species likes continental planets. There will be a few of those in and around your home system. But we've ticked over the 20-minute mark now, I think. So I would say that's a pretty good area, a good point to end this particular video. I'm going to keep going with the United Nations of Earth and this playthrough. I will be talking through in really a lot of detail. If you have any questions, please comment. If you liked the video, literally this is my first video on YouTube at this channel. I've tried a couple before, but this is the first time I'm really going for a long series like this. Please do like it if you like it. Please do sub if you want to see more. And if you want to ask me questions more interactively, I'm also live on Twitch. The link will be in the description below. Norse tier, as you might have guessed. And I will be streaming from midday British summertime with a Stellaris game. I am more than happy to talk through any questions that people have there. Am I the world's best player? Probably not. Am I one of the most chatty? I think I probably am. But anyhow, thank you very much for watching my video. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.